record this. And I was kind of hoping Jerry Ann or Rebecca would join us, but I'll send a note out and let them know that we're going right now.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
All right.
Chuck, I think you need to enable
I do,
screen
don't I?
sharing for me.
I'm trying to remember how the hell you do that. Multiple participants. There we go. All right. Can you do that now?
Let's see. Share screen. Doesn't seem to be letting me do it.
Let me try it again. Multiple, blah, blah, blah.
Share. There we go.
Work better now?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Cool.
Okay, does everybody see the intro slide? Ski to ski fundamental?
Yep.
All right, great.
Yep.
So, as always, jump in with questions whenever they come up. Looks like Rebecca just joined us. So
Yeah,
this has
hi,
been,
sorry I'm late.
oh, hey, welcome, Rebecca. This has been a lot of fun and just a huge learning experience for me. Chuck has had good fun at my expense as my eyes have been opened and opened and opened yet again. So I will jump into it. So let's start out and maybe talk about the things that you all took away from the last call. What were the things that were meaningful to you about what you learned about ski to ski pressure?
So I don't know if it's meaningful, but like you, I was struggling with that center of mass moves inside and pressure moves to the outside. And as we started to discuss it, thinking about it in terms of almost a retraction type turn or a cross under really helped clarify for me that sentence in the technical manual.
Yeah, I agree. The sentence in the technical manual is incredibly brief, but I kept going back to that as I would learn more and watch more. And it kind of says it all without very many words. And the more I understood it, the more I could, I guess, read into the couple of sentences that are in there.
Yeah, for me, it finally made sense to sort of have the center of mass to the inside of the turn, and that's how you create angulation. That was sort of a real aha moment for me.
Yeah, I had the same one. A couple of the other things that came to me as I was doing that was just the whole idea of balancing over the outside ski in the middle and later parts of the turn requires you to develop counter and angulation. So you can't really you can't really keep pressure directed to the outside ski later in the turn if the edging and rotation fundamentals aren't working well. And then the other thing I talked about that I used a lot with my guests more at the level 2 kind of skier is the notion that we went through on penetrating versus skidding pressure, the why and how. Is that useful to anybody else?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I like that as a thought. That was a good observation.
Thank you. Yeah,
So,
it's interesting. I didn't see that coming up as a thought with the more advanced presentations like Tom Gelly and oh God, who else? Paul Lorenz. You know, I think they're far enough past that they have some counter built in. They have a little bit of angulation going on, and it doesn't take a ton, but in our level 2 kinds of skiers, I see a complete absence of it. Okay, so agenda for today. First off, I wanted to start out going through the PSI expectations on movement analysis, moving from a level 2 type of MA to a level 3. I mean, all of us are here to get better at understanding skiing from a technical perspective, but also to pass our level 2s and level 3s. So I thought that would be a good starting point. We'll talk more about the physics of the fundamental and then the biomechanics of some of the movements, and then spend a little time talking about how ski-to-ski fundamental interacts with others. And then I've got 4 MAs that I'd like to do. Some level 5 skiers and some level 7. I think that'll be fun to kind of take what we've learned and apply it to the guests we might see, and also some of the guests we probably don't get to see, but just watching some really good skiing. And, you know, as I've been going through this, I've just had this recurring thought of Alice down the rabbit hole. So I found an image of that to put in here. So PSI, this is from the technical performance guide, the various areas that are going to be judged when we do an exam, describing the ski and body performance, linking the ski and body performance, and then prescribing a specific change. So from a level 2 to level 3 in describing the ski and body performance, what we're really doing is going from being able to talk about 2 Alpine fundamentals at a time to being able to talk about all of them, and in blended relationships and through multiple phases of the turn and turn to turn. Chuck, anything you want to highlight in there, having completed your exam successfully in this area last year?
I think the big thing is that when you're watching someone ski, you're looking at not just what they're doing, but when they're doing it and how, and you're asking the question of how is that done and why are they doing it in that particular way. You know, when you're in level 2, it's kind of more siloed. Yeah, we talk about 2 fundamentals, but it's kind of like I'm tracking one of the fundamentals while I'm doing a full MA on the other. So they're semi-siloed, but when you get to the level 3 part of it, everything is just a kind of a blend, and you're looking at overall movements. That's why it's become more of like a discussion. And then of course, not only is it from front, top, middle, and bottom of the turn, but also from turn to turn, those kind of things too. So those are the real, you know, that's how I see the differences.
Thanks.
Doesn't sound to me like that's much different, because really, once you're looking at one fundamental, they all blend together anyway. So I'm not very clear that L2 is that much different than L3.
It is and it isn't. It's kind of weird how they do it in a kind of a way, but you know, looking in retrospect, you know, and I did level 2 was we're going to do edging. And then we're going to go ahead and track pressure as it relates to that edging. And that was it. Now it's, you know, you really have to kind of read all the phases of the turn. You have to read all of the fundamentals all at once. And then you realize, you know, that was kind of the big juxtaposition for me was, man, I mean, how the fundamentals interact with each other all the time. And that you're not able to do things, execute one fundamental without some other fundamental helping, and vice versa. So that's really kind of how I see it. Or I should say that was my eureka moment.
So next area, link ski and body performance to describe just cause and effect relationships in 2 Alpine fundamentals at level 2. And at level 3, it's more about blended cause and effect relationships. Um,
Actually, could I interject one thing here?
yeah, please
And
do.
this is really just to kind of ask you a question. When you're going through this whole process, how hard was it for you to start separating out fundamentals?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So at the level two, I was able to, and you need to be successful at the level two to silo things. But kind of in the process of doing that, I didn't pay as much attention, honestly, to how they crossed over and impacted each other. And really in the process of preparing this presentation, watching some of the videos, you know, the ones that I found and the ones you recommended, I've started to see a lot more clearly, you know, for example, that the directing pressure to the outside ski, that long leg, short leg move is really the beginning also of edging, because it moves the center of the mass to the inside of the turn and inclines the body. And then, you know, as you start going through it, seeing that being able to direct pressure to the outside ski requires that you're in a countered and angulated position. And if you aren't, you just aren't going to be able to do that. So, you know, prior to really doing this, I didn't see the cause and effect nearly as clearly. I could articulate that, you know, maybe making too pronounced a move in the long leg, short leg would push you over inside of the turn, but it wasn't occurring to me that also what was going on was poor rotation and poor angulation so much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, was like, you know, the part of the process of this, of doing these presentations is having the realization that it's really, really difficult after a while to start siloing them again.
Well, that's just it. It's like, it's kind of like that song, Love and Marriage, Horse and Carriage is
Right,
like
yeah,
love and
mhm.
marriage. You can't have one without the other, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, well, go continue. Sorry, I wanted to kind of connect what I was talking about and then what your experience is when you were doing this.
Yeah, next area, prescribe a specific change in one fundamental to create a change in desired outcome. And going to a level three, it's more to affect the blended fundamentals. You know, start talking about, hey, what we're really going to work with you on, for example, we're going to work on rotation. The reason we're going to do that is that's going to help you direct pressure to your outside ski later in the turn, and we can do it just by working in this area. Am I understanding that correctly, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The last one here I thought was really interesting. This is in the performance guide. Relate how equipment choice affects the skiing outcomes through the intermediate zone. And it says, evaluate equipment-based cause and effect relationships relative to the student and their objectives in all skier ability zones. And I took my level 2 exam last year, and we did get into equipment just in kind of a basic way, like noting, for example, in the MA that the person I was watching didn't have really fat skis on. So it didn't make it harder for them to tip their skis on edge. But this looks a lot more in depth to me. And Chuck, maybe I'd like to hear your experience with that. Was that a part of the exam, or is that something they're still incorporating?
It is part of the exam process, but I'm going to be honest with you. It was the first year was last year talking about it specifically. And I know I had gone through like a couple of, I went through a teaching cycle thing where you have to do a little bit of an MA at the beginning of it. And part of that was about skis. But the thing is that when you're in the level 3, everybody's wearing skinny skis.
Right.
You know, they're wearing a performance ski. They're not wearing like 120s or something like that.
Right.
It's, you know, they're out there to perform at their best, and they choose their equipment wisely. But definitely I said something about poles, and I remember Jim Shaw looking at me and goes, Yeah, nobody's ever said anything about poles, but it was a very first level 3 MA, so it's not surprising. So, I mean, it was mostly, the skis that he's wearing is appropriate. It looks like his boots are buckled. They're
Right.
on the right feet. His ski poles look like the appropriate length. And he's wearing a helmet, thank God. I mean, that's basically all you say.
Yeah. Well, I think poles are such a great observation though, because just before we started the call, I was watching Paul Lorenz in a carving video, and he talked about poles. And he, when he really got serious about learning to carve, he realized that his poles were creating too much of a vertical extension and disrupting his turn. And so he went to adjustable poles and keeps them quite short for when he's going to be doing carving, only a little longer than he uses for moguls. So, that's been kind of eye-opening for me. And also in my level 2 ski, which I did pass, the examiner told me I needed to get shorter poles. So that's disrupting your skiing. And that's what was fascinating to me, because I've been using the same pole length for the past 40 some odd years. So,
Yeah,
okay.
all the team members have talked about having shorter poles. And even Deb Armstrong talks about her poles being too long.
Interesting. Yeah, when I was racing in college, I wanted to have long poles for getting out to a fast start out of the starting gate. But, okay, so digressing a little bit. So before we talk about maybe the mechanics and get into doing some of the MA, wanted to take a
First
look
thing
at
in the morning
what,
when you know it's fresh.
let's do that. What a level 3, high level 3 skier really looks like. And let me slow this down a little bit. And this is Paul Lorenz. And I just started watching some of his channel. He's got some great stuff. What kind of things do you all see in his skiing that tell you this is level 3 skiing?
It's interesting that the transition is very, very fast. Or maybe that was just the way it's being shown. But
Yeah, what else do you see in his transition?
well, go ahead, somebody else wants to say something.
I see him changing edges before rotating his legs. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah, the edge change starts out with that long leg, short leg movement, tips his body over, and that starts the edge change right away. And as he changes edges, you can see it coming in here. He's changing edges. Yeah, there's no rotation at all. There he rotates a little bit, but he gets the skis up on edge. And as he tips the skis on edge with pressure to the front of the ski, the tips start to grab and steer the ski. And then he's making carved turns. So he's not doing a ton of deliberate rotation. He's allowing the skis to rotate themselves largely, I think.
So I'll ask the question. And the reason I'm asking this question is because it was an aha moment for me. But why? Why is he tipping and then turning?
Well,
Well,
that's Jenny's order of operations.
Let me ask the question just slightly different. What happens if he, and this was the aha moment for me, what happens if he doesn't think about the fundamental that we're talking about right now? What happens if he doesn't tip? How does he manage the pressure?
Yeah, that's a great question. How is he managing the pressure?
So for me, this was the aha moment. It was reading something that I think it was either, I think it might have been Gelly, but it could have been Blue. How can you manage pressure if there's no bite? You have to edge. And for me, this was the aha moment. Oh, this is how the fundamentals link together in this particular case. You have to edge. Otherwise, you can't manage that pressure. There's nothing to hold on to.
Right. Yeah, and in terms of managing the pressure, one of the things I see here is you look at him, the extension that he's getting from his legs is not vertical. As he comes in here, he's getting a lot of extension to get pressure to that outside ski very early in the turn, but it's a lateral extension of his legs. And he's managing the pressure without a lot of up and down movement. He's managing the pressure and the transition, AJ, as you noted, by making a real smooth edge change that releases the pressure from the old turn, starts him tipping over, and he's using a little bit of a retraction there because he has created a lot of energy in the skis, a lot of flex. He can't just instantly release all that flex. It would throw him off the snow. All right. Any other observations? I just think this is some great.
Go back just a little bit further to kind of build on AJ's point. And AJ, yeah, you have to build a platform. The platform has to be there.
Exactly.
You don't have a platform, there's no way that you're going to turn the skis or create bite as we're going. So if you go back at the top of the turn there, or you can continue this one. He allows the skis to move out and his body moves down the hill. And he's creating platform. And then it's almost like right there, you see the skis already turning because he pressures them so quickly at the top of the turn. It doesn't even look like he's settled in to the new turn and the skis are already turning.
So are the skis turning or are they bending, in which case
Well,
it takes the design of the ski to turn?
I'm going to say, what is the difference? In this guy's case, yes,
Well,
he is using the ski design to help him manufacture a turn at the top. He's not using rotation, or he's using
Okay, yeah,
rotation to
that's
help
what
him steer the ski. But like I said, the point that I'm making is that we were doing a long leg, short leg, and then we were talking about counter in the last part one, right? When does he start to establish counter? The skis are already turning. Where in the turn, if you go back just a smidgen, where in the turn does he start to really establish counter?
he's got counter well at the top of the turn,
He's got
almost at the
yeah,
transition.
yeah, but he's not settled in, right? He doesn't need to settle in here. He doesn't have to put a lot of pressure on the ski right now, right? Because he's falling, toppling, whatever you want to call it, to the inside. And then when he gets to, go ahead and go forward with it. When he gets right to about the fall line and the pressure really is starting to kick in, where he's starting to kind of resist against gravity, he's still not established, still not really countered yet. And then it's like a boom moment.
Yeah, so right here.
Now he's established that outside leg. He's really powered into it. Gravity is starting to affect it as well as centrifugal force. And there's your counter. Yeah, he has counter at the top, but it's not like counter that he's using to pressure the outside ski.
Yeah, earlier in the turn, he's really creating the pressure to the outside ski with the lateral extension of the leg.
Exactly.
And here,
Exactly.
the ski has started to really create its own pressure because he's crossing the fall line. Gravity is adding on to the centripetal force that
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
generating.
he's getting those force
the ski being on
multipliers, which is
edge.
really causing bend. But the top of the turn, I mean, we kind of talked about it a couple of days ago, right? Because you had heard that thing from Gilly too, where I was like, well, you almost have to use a little plantar flexion at the top of the turn
Mhm.
to get the ski to bite early, as well as a little of that rotational pressure to get the tip to dive in.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff.
Look where the snow is coming out. It's coming out at the very tip
Yeah,
of his ski.
yeah,
It's phenomenal.
yeah. That's a great point. The pressure he's generating right on the very tip of that ski. And then look at the differential, the amount of snow that's coming up from the outside ski to the inside ski. I mean, it's obvious there's a ton more pressure on the outside ski. Okay.
And he's not, if you look, he's not pressing against it. He's not standing
First thing in the
on a
morning
stiff
when you're
leg.
not.
His
Sorry.
knee is bent significantly. His outside knee is bent significantly. So he's managing the pressure. He's not pushing against the mountain. He's balancing on that outside ski.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that late in the turn is where he's really managing the pressure. He's not looking for more pressure as he is early in the turn. I mean, look at, there's no snow being kicked up there early, and it really gets explosive later on in the turn.
Yeah, but it does such a beautiful job of carving.
Mm-hmm.
He still has that ankle tension, but he's definitely using the foot. I can watch this all day. You better move
I
on.
know.
It's gonna be, we're
Yeah.
gonna be here all day. Oh, beautiful
Okay.
skiing, man. I could watch it all day long.
So kind of physics of the fundamental. The fundamental is control ski to ski pressure and direct pressure to the outside ski. What's creating the pressure?
I'd say it's the mountain.
I'd say it's the interaction between the ski and the mountain.
Mm-hmm. But what kinds of forces from a physics perspective?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is gravity. The secondary one's gonna be that
Centrifugal.
centrifugal and centrifugal and centripetal forces that are pulling you to the outside of a turn as you turn, but you have to be turning for that to be felt. So
Yeah, so I think I have this understanding correct now. The centrifugal force is the force we feel.
right.
What's going on really is our momentum is trying to go in a straight line. We're not going in a straight line. We're changing our direction of travel. And so we feel centrifugal force. The centripetal force is the force that the snow delivers to the ski as a result of it being on edge, bending, and causing our body, our center of mass, to change its direction of travel. So what can
Are you
increase?
sure that that's a centripetal force? I thought the centripetal force is actually what the body is doing to the snow, or that's the gravity. I'm getting confused now.
So I'm pretty sure centripetal force is the force the snow delivers back to us.
Yeah.
So what can increase the centripetal force? What in the ski snow interaction will change how much centripetal force there is?
I think edge angles.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he creates amazing edge angles. I mean, he's like sitting on the snow.
Oh yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? How would the kind of pressure that we deliver to the ski change our centripetal force? Remember last time we talked about penetrating versus skidding pressure. So if we have
That-
more, go ahead.
That too has to do with edge angle. The more of an, of an edge you have like less, what's the word I'm looking for? You have a lesser component with the snow, so you create more pressure. Like if you have a flat ski, you have a bigger surface. If you have an edge ski, you have the same pressure on a much smaller surface, so that increases the pressure. Does that make sense?
It does. I think what I've started to believe or heard from some of the instructors that I've worked with is that the edge angle determines the turn radius, and the amount of grip is determined by the outside ski pressure, and more specifically, are we getting a penetrating pressure to the ski versus a skidding pressure? Does that make sense?
But doesn't skidding pressure depend on the edge angle also?
No, skidding pressure is more determined by the angle between the center of mass and the base of the ski.
Oh, okay.
So that if the, and we had this slide, I can't pull it up right away, but it's in the deck that I sent out. One of the slides there goes into skidding versus penetrating pressure. But the idea is if we get, for example, all inclination, our center of mass starts to have an oblique angle to the bottom of the ski. And if we're using some angulation, our body, our torso is more upright, it brings our center of mass to a more oblique, or excuse me, acute relationship in terms of the angle. The analogy I used last time is, imagine we're pounding a nail into a board. We want to hit that from above. So we're delivering downward or penetrating pressure. If we were to try and pound the nail in by coming from the side, we wouldn't drive the nail in. It's kind of the difference between using angulation and strictly inclination to direct pressure to the outside ski. Does that help, Chuck? Should I bring up that slide from the last presentation?
No, I think that's pretty good. I mean, the whole idea is, but we kind of use it in relation to what counter was, right? So counter brings the center of mass or more mass over the edge, above the edge, where if you incline, you take mass away from the edge and you're not using gravity to help you penetrate the snow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there was a really good example of like that tug of war thing that we were talking about. If you
Right.
stand up in a tug of war contest where you stand on it, you'll fall over, right? And you'll lose pressure to your feet because the force is pulling you down and not into the feet. But if you have a little bit of a bend in your waist, you're stacking the weight over your feet, which allows you to grip more.
That's a good image. So the things that generate the pressure that we're going to direct to the outside ski are gravity and centripetal force. We talked about edge angle, how much gripping, also speed and snow conditions. We watch these guys making these carved turns. Are they doing that at 6 or 7 miles an hour? No, they wouldn't be generating the kind of force, the centripetal force, or the rate of change of their direction of travel to be able to incline that far. So when does the pressure occur? We were watching Paul Lorenz. What did you guys see in terms of where the pressure was really building and where it wasn't as high?
shaping phase.
Right. And why is that?
Because that's where the forces would be the greatest, right?
Why?
This is the part on page 53 I never understand.
Isn't that word change of direction? You have a force that happens because of change of direction. Your centrifugal and centripetal forces. And then you also have, when you hit the fall line, you're starting to introduce a gravity as a force multiplier too.
So centripetal force, I don't know if I'm saying it right, is the lateral force. So at the shaping, that's when that's kicking in. Is that right?
Yes, so you have centrifugal versus centripetal. So
Yeah.
centripetal forces is a force you feel on the skis. It's a force that's pushing against the skis. And centrifugal forces are the force that you have that pushes your body weight into the skis.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I explain them. So
Yeah, so Jerry Ann, later in the turn, what's going on? You're making the turn, if you're making a perfectly round turn, the centripetal force, the force that the snow is delivering to you, it's going to stay relatively constant. It's a function of your speed and your turn radius. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as you're coming around the turn and into the shaping phase, think about it. You initiate the turn, you have gravity trying to pull you down, but your centripetal force is going uphill. So gravity is deducting the net force from the centripetal force. As you come down the hill and start to cross it again, then gravity is pulling in the same direction as the centripetal force. Or you're changing
I see.
momentum. So that's why the force you feel in your feet increases a lot. You're really starting to feel gravity where you aren't at the top of the turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
AJ just put a definition of the fugal versus pedal on the chat in case anybody's interested.
Thank
yeah,
you.
mine, I can't download it for some reason, but
Yeah, I'm not seeing that either.
Let's see.
It's on the chat.
Yeah, I went to chat. I'm not seeing it. I don't
Okay,
know.
so I'll read it. It says centripetal versus centrifugal. These two are very similar. Centripetal is the force that pulls you to the center. Gravity is an example here. When you are in circular motion, centrifugal force will try to push you out and cancels out the centripetal force.
Right.
yeah.
I see.
Honestly, I don't think you would flunk an MA by using either one of those.
Okay. You could just say forces.
Well, yeah, I mean, they cancel each other out. There's a force you feel versus force you recreate, right?
Well, I think
They're
the
the-
manual essentially sort of says, don't talk about centripetal, talk about centrifugal.
Right. I think for the most part, everybody's supposed to use centrifugal, but I don't. I couldn't bring myself to deduct points for something like that. You know what I mean? Because you don't have one without the other. So it's kind of pointless to argue one way or the other, really. Other from a purely academic reasons.
But I'm going to argue it for a second.
Okay.
So yeah, last week we had talked about what it is towards the end of our discussion. We had talked about what it is that somebody's feeling and how do they, and Gordon asked the question, what are they doing? And I said, well, maybe it's because they don't know what they're feeling. And what I'm going to argue is, I think that that's actually centripetal. What they're feeling is this big marble pushing up against the skis, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And so that's centripetal.
right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And that, yes, to Jerry Ann's question, and Chuck, you had said it eloquently, they counteract one another. But I think for the sake of this discussion of ski to ski pressure, I would argue, maybe I'm wrong, but I would argue that centripetal is actually a little more important.
I'm not going to argue either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, my understanding, the centripetal force, AJ, as you put it, it's the big marble pushing up against us. It's what's making us change direction. Well, this is great discussion. I do want to make sure we get to the MA. So let's continue on here a little bit. We've talked about this a little bit already, so let's keep going. I'll go through this kind of quickly. I thought the biomechanics of the early turn phase, the long leg, short leg. We looked at this slide last week, and I drew some lines in here to show, I don't know why it does that. Show what's happening first with the short leg. And you can see how the hip and the knee, those joints move and change. They're both extending here to initiate the turn. And then here is the former outside leg. You can see this is long to start out with, and the knee and the hip both flex. You know, I think I actually got this question my level 2 MA, just, you know, what kind of joint is that? So I threw that in there. The knee is a hinge joint. It has some limited rotation and lateral movement, and the hip is a ball and socket joint. It can move in multiple directions, but the long leg, short leg move is flexion and extension, and that's in the frontal plane. Getting that correct?
Yes. Frontal plane for lateral movements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Flexion and extension is 4F also, isn't it?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4F is on the frontal plane.
I think the
No,
point of this
that's
slide
sagittal.
is, the point of the slide is, even though it's pressure oriented, so we're talking about joints, right? Flexing and extending joints.
Okay.
But this is how we move the center of mass laterally, as well as extend pressure to the outside ski.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, you see how everything relates. It's the same joints mostly that we're using for fore and aft. And this movement is absolutely also controlling edge angles. You can see the body moving to the inside of the turn, skis tipping from being on one edge to tipping to being on the other. And this is all pressure control movements. Okay. Put in the muscles here. I won't spend time on this again. I do want to get to the MA. Quick thing on some of the biomechanics of balancing over the outside ski is we talked about getting to balance over the outside ski really requires us developing the rotation, the counter and the angulation. And those are coming from efficient rotation and edging fundamentals. And, you know, as I was wading into this, I was starting to think, oh, okay, I need to explain the biomechanics of rotation and of angulation now. No, that's not where this isn't where we really do that. We talk about that in other fundamentals, but I wanted to at least acknowledge them. You know, some good introductions from Tom Gelly down here in the orange. Actually, I think this is, that's Paul Lorenz. No, that's a Tom Gelly slide, isn't it, Chuck?
It could be Paul, it could be
Okay.
Riley. It
You know,
could be-
anyway, where can we have angulation come from? It's all these sources. But in terms of directing pressure to the outside ski, I think Tom Gelly does a nice job here of just kind of illustrating the development of counter and flexion at the hips to create some angulation that's going to get the pressure to the outside ski. All right.
Oh, hey, go back. There was So Tom Goulden did a demo last year.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
thought was a really, really good example of this. So everybody stand up real quick. And just kind of have your hands on your hips and your feet about shoulder width apart. And then stand on one leg. And how easy is that to do? I mean, I see a lot of wobbling going on, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but what happens if you kind of turn a little bit towards that foot?
It's a lot easier.
It's way easier. And that's kind of how we kind of, I look down at my foot, all of a sudden the foot that I have off the ground is starting to point inwards towards the new turn, right?
Yep.
But I feel stacked and I can move up and down easily over that leg. No problem at all. I could balance easily, even if I move around a lot. But when I just have just this kind of tipping motion, and I don't have any of that kind of counter, that rotation built in, it's hard. It's much harder to do stuff. But just that little bit. And what Tom Gelly is doing right there in that one lower right-hand photo is he's showing that what happens if you go too far. And we get what we call that hip dump. And he was showing an example of somebody who went too far. He was getting a lot of hip dump, a whole lot of counter. What happens to that inside? What happens to that leg that you're supposed to be standing on? All of a sudden the knee turns out and you're not getting that. It's kind of like anti-angulation. It's angling away from the tipping motion that you want from the ski. Where before, I just had a little bit, I could move the knee laterally, but I get too far, it starts to just turn inwards. That's what he was kind of doing there. He was kind of showing that, hey, look at my knee, see how it's not bending to the inside like Riley is, it's bending to the outside, and I lose my ability to tip the ski, angulate the ski from the knee joint by being having too much hip.
So when you are standing on one foot, actually, you should be turning your body in the opposite direction of that foot.
Yeah, because
not
you
on the same
align.
foot.
Well, that's the thing also. I can't get far enough away here to really show. So hold on. I'm going to speak without hearing anybody, so please don't speak. If you're way back here and I just tip, if I just tip, I'm on my left foot now. If I tip, it's hard for me to do anything. But I do a little bit of turning into it. Suddenly I can move my knee, I can move my hip, I can bounce up and down. I get a lot greater range of motion, and I've also aligned my body back over that foot so I could do more stuff.
Mhm.
Cool? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my headphones back on. Does that make sense?
I'm going to use that with some of my students. I like that.
Oh my God, when he did that, I was like, well, how come I didn't think of that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just the perfect illustration of why counter is important. It allows us to do all these things. I can extend pressure to the outside leg because I have just this little bit of rotation that happens. And it doesn't take much. It's just a little bit. I'll align my body over the skis. Cool. Take her away there, Gordon.
All right. Biomechanics. Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit already, so let me skip through again. Ski to ski. Now we're kind of running out of time. I'm feeling like maybe we skip over this as much as I'd like to, and at least get one MA done. Does that make sense?
I'm happy to stay longer. I don't know about others, so don't feel that you have to rush it and skip the things that you worked on. I don't know
Thank
how
you.
the others feel.
I don't mind spending extra time.
I think these are kind of important. This is kind of one of the reasons why we do this second part too. So let's go ahead and stick with that. I mean, we just kind of covered how rotation, that little bit of rotation, fundamental,
Mhm.
affects our ski, how we pressure the outside ski. But there are other things that we can consider too. I mean, you kind of covered how long leg, short leg affects your ability to edge, right?
Yeah.
We're over here and we shorten one and it go flat and then we extend to the other one and we tip again. And you had that beautiful video of that was Riley, wasn't it? No, it was
That was Lawrence.
Paul Lawrence, that beautiful video of him where he allows himself to get down and and incline very quickly to get on edge so that he can pressure the outside ski quickly. And he gets turning really before he gets established in his counter. Even though there is a little bit of counter, obviously his body's pointed down the hill, but it's kind of like, it's out here where his skis are moving away from the counter. Instead of crashing into the counter, they're moving away, but he allows the ski to get out so that he can tip and pressure that allows the ski to come around. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Any other examples anybody want to point out?
Yeah.
For
Anything
each-
come to
for-
mind how the fundamentals interact with ski to ski pressure?
So so I gave my thought about edging and being able to have a platform upon which one can manage that pressure. From a fore aft perspective, in my mind, it has all to do with balance. Again, if you don't have the proper fore aft balance, how are you going to balance on that outside ski?
Right.
It just becomes ineffective. If you're sitting back, your ankles are open, which we saw in your examples last week. If your ankles are open and your behind is back behind your heel piece, how are you going to balance on that outside ski? You
Right.
can't. You can't manage that pressure.
Yeah. And you can't even create the pressure. You can't make the ski turn in that kind of arc. to create
Exactly.
Centripetal force. If you're skiing from the back, you're never going to generate centripetal force. You're going to generate force because you wind up having to rotate the skis rather than letting them steer from the tips. So tip them sideways, you get a real high steering angle. You're skidding across the snow. That's not centripetal force though. It's a braking force.
Exactly. That's how you slow down. I mean, we also could look at it from the rotational standpoint and say, okay, what do most of our guests do when they rotate? They use upper body rotation.
Upper
which
body, yeah.
pulls them away from the outside ski, realigns them over the inside ski, and all of a sudden you lost your ability to pressure the outside ski. We talk about that all the time. We see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we kind of touched on it, the magnitude of pressure. A magnitude of pressure is like got several components. But yeah, I mean, the flexing and extending of the legs is definitely some way that we could manage the forces and release the forces by shortening one leg and lengthening the other, which is going to take pressure off of the edges and push it around to a bigger surface before we go to the other side. I mean, that's all part of magnitude.
And we've all seen the videos. I mean, we've seen them for the last 2 years of people doing all of the bad things simultaneously. Turning with the upper body, bracing against that. So there's the fore aft. Their butt goes in, their upper body goes down. There's the magnitude of pressure.
They pressure the
They-
inside ski instead of the outside ski.
Exactly. There's that doesn't allow them to rotate. There's 4 of the 5 right there. And how the hell are their edging is simply jamming on that downhill ski and
Mhm.
pressuring the uphill ski. And that's the thing that's actually got weight on it. And there's all 5 right there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he got the long skid. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Good stuff. Okay, so when I send the deck out, I'll have some of my thoughts on that discussion, but that really captured it. So let's look at the MAs. So I got a couple of different levels. Warren Smith Academy, these are Australian level 2 skiers, which is a PSIA, I think, level 5. Somebody want to be a volunteer here for the first one? We're going to do skier 1. 26, there we go.
There's your skier, AJ.
Yep. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, so somebody jump in. How's she directing pressure to the outside ski? Is she, what's going on there? There's a lot of stuff. Anybody? Bueller?
Well, she picks up the inside ski early in the turn, so she can get pressure to the outside ski. She almost does that as she's starting to twist at the top. I mean, the tip of the ski is off the snow right there. Which tells me that that twisting motion has allowed her to move back. Her ankles have opened up a little bit. So by the time that she lands, she's already past the fall line. And it's kind of like a hockey skiddy. She is getting pressure to the outside ski, and somebody has coached her to keep her arms down the hill. So she's
Mhm.
trying to create some counter at the end of the turn, which is allowing her to put a lot of pressure on the outside ski. But it's a kind of an all at once motion with still a lot of stemming and twisting at the top to get there.
Yeah, a lot of lateral displacement of that outside leg too. Like you said, she's got to pick up the inside ski to get pressure to the outside ski because she's already inclined so far. She's not generating any centripetal force right here to balance against that amount of incline. So she's artificially doing it by kind of hopping with her right foot off until more pressure builds. And there's no shaping phase at all. It's just all rotates right at the end of the turn.
And most of the spray seems to coming out from the tails of the skis, so.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think she lands in the middle, but she takes off from the back, which is odd because she has to lighten her tails in order to get them around, which is probably why she,
Well, it's also full body rotation.
oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So ideally, what would you do? What would you change? How could we get this woman to get pressure to the outside ski sooner?
Great
So she
question.
could have rounder, more perfect PSIA turns.
Well, ideally, if she starts by lifting the new inside ski to initiate the turn, that already directs pressure to the new outside ski by definition.
Sure. I mean, this is a good position she's in right here. This is kind of like her initiation.
Yeah, so if she can start by lifting that current outside ski, she's got to be able to, then she has to put that inside ski that is going to be the new outside ski on edge, and she's got to be standing over that outside ski in order to be able to really be in any kind of balance, and that's going to make her be in front of the ski.
Is she
So-
doing that now? Because she's lifting that inside ski.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
she's,
but when,
well, I mean, this looks pretty good here.
no,
Actually has a
I
little
think,
angulation there.
I think at the end of the turn, she's well balanced over the skis in the finish phase. The problem is what's happening between the initiation and the shaping to get there.
So, Gumby, how do you get her to pressure the outside ski sooner?
Well, I mean, I mean, look at her ankles right now. So the twisting motion that she's using is causing her to go up and back. There's the up and back. And then that's robbing her of any engagement that she could get at the higher in the turn. So what we need to get her to do is allow the skis to engage first before we twist.
And how do you plan to do that?
Oh, you didn't ask that part.
Well, I just did.
I'm giving you a prescription of change. I mean, Gordon and I kind of talked about this. So what would be your approach with this woman right off the bat? So the difference between a level 2 and level 3 is the first thing you got to ask yourself as a level 3 is, why is she doing what she's doing? And does she know that she's doing it?
I have been just kind of digesting the exercise we just did
Yeah.
of this, and then see if I can make myself visible. Nah, this is not a good angle. I realized that, you said like when you go here,
You bring it down more so we could see your legs.
well, I don't think it's possible with Zoom.
Well,
But
but
I'm
your
just gonna
hips,
talk it
because we only
through.
see your
Okay.
upper body here.
I'm going to talk it through, Rebecca, so that you can
Okay.
understand. So first, I'm standing completely square. My shoulders, hip, and feet are all aligned. What's happening in her is she's rotating. Now, when you just rotate without shifting the weight, your weight goes actually into the inside, this side. I rotated this way, and my weight goes to this side, which is
Oh.
going to be the inside skis when I'm making this way turn. But if I shift my weight first, then do the rotation of the spine, my weight goes to the outside of the ski. And what she needs to know is she needs to know those difference between shift, then rotate versus just rotate. It's
Okay.
so, and lots of this level skiers, they were told to rotate their hip, which we are just doing it from upper body to create the situation because we are not skiing on the floor. But when the body is, when she somehow missed the opportunity to learn to this shift the weight before you do anything else to start a next turn, all the bad thing that we just, like AJ's list was so thorough, that will happen without knowing how to do this foot to foot weight shift. For example, if you just stand square like I'm here, and then try to pick one foot up without shifting the weight, it's impossible. We're gonna fall over. But if we shift the weight, we can pick one foot up, right? So that is something we got to stand, we need to have her feel, even if it takes, we do it during like water break between, the run in a ski lodge, so be it, but it has to be like somewhere so stable. Instead of, we try to do all this exercise on the snow that may or may not give comfort and stability to really feel what it's like. And with her, I would just like, it's like, okay, let's have Coco and then have entire group do this shift weight exercise that we just did. And that's a good start. So I would go back to that level before we do anything on the snow, pick feet up, do this, do this, do this. When the ground underneath of you is moving, it's really hard to focus. Make sense? That's how I would do it.
Okay. Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on there. So why is she picking up the inside ski? I think that's a great question to focus on.
Because she has to turn it quickly.
Well, somebody must have told her to put the weight on the outside ski, so she's trying really hard.
So I think one of the things that may be going on is and this is crossing over lanes, but she's doing a very sequential edge change. And I think she's doing that kind of hop move with the inside ski to get off of opposing edges and get over to corresponding edges. Does that make sense to anybody else?
Can you back it up and so that we can see that? I just want to.
Yeah, see right here, how that ski is off the snow. I go forward a little bit. So she started with that outside ski to flatten it. And she's pushing the new inside ski off the snow. So she picks it up, rolls it on the other ski on edge, and rolls this one on edge.
So is this like from a wedge to a Christie, picking that inside ski up to bring it into parallel?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so. You
so
know,
is this deliberate or is this accidental is I think what we need to establish first.
Well,
Is
I
she
don't.
doing this because
Yeah,
this
why?
is what the task is? Or is she doing this without being aware?
So Rebecca, she may not be aware, but what other option does she have? I only can think of one other option she might have. But to me, she's sort of, whether it's, she knows she's doing this, whether it's deliberate or not, to me, she only's got like two options here, both of which are stem type maneuvers. She can either pick it up and yank it around, or she can quickly slide it around, smush it around, smear it around. She's
Yeah.
only
But
got.
if she can't get it flat, she can't do that.
Yes,
well, yeah,
you're
I
right.
think it makes a difference if she's doing this deliberately or she's not aware of it. Because if she's doing this deliberately, then what's the reason for it? If she's doing this accidentally without being aware, then we need to fix that differently.
Yeah, we need to ask her
Yeah.
questions. That's kind of where I was going was.
Okay,
And
I'll agree
but I'm
with that.
not knocking what
I'll agree with
Noriko
that.
said.
Okay,
I
thank
really
you.
liked what Noriko had to say too. That was
Hmm.
kind of brilliantly done. But yeah, we need to ask her. Because I see some stiffness in the arms, which leads me to believe that somebody may have instructed her to try to keep her upper body pointed down the
Yeah.
hill, which is not very successful because she's still twisting her shoulders and her hips, and she's doing a lot of unusual things.
But she is staying upright on her skis.
She is.
Yeah.
And what
Keeping the basics in
bothers me,
contact with the snow.
yeah, what bothers me is the extension at the top of the turn, which is robbing her, even though she is getting pressure to the outside ski, she's not building a platform. She's going straight up away from the snow
Mhm.
on a flat ski, which is not allowing her to, it's not allowing her to put pressure on there in a way that she can use the ski function.
So like right at this spot, someone, I think, anyway, someone told me to just take the ski off, and if you prop her on the slope like this, can she keep standing? And in that situation, her outside leg is skidding out. So she had to put the inside foot to be able to keep standing. And what we want, well, I mean, she's managing it. She's coming down. She's not falling. Like Jerry Ann said, she keeps skiing.
Mhm.
So it's not efficient, but something is working,
Yeah, that's a great
right?
point.
And then what's working is, so this outside ski is pushing the snow, creating the resistance, so she would go to the other way. And then her inside leg is holding her up so she won't fall. If this leg isn't stopping her, she'll be falling inside of the turn like this.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
That's what's going on. It's working, but because we are ski instructors, we want to fix it. Because if the condition gets tougher than this technique won't work.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to that. When she extends upwards, she never creates a platform to stand on. So when she finally does put pressure on that outside ski, what happens to it? It's flat. She rotates it and pushes it away. And as she pushes it away, that's just a really comfortable feeling for most people, which is why she lands on an inside ski. And she's using that as a prop to keep her up. There's a perfect example showing it right there.
Yeah.
Because she never
So-
creates a platform that she could stand on the outside early in the turn. If she did that early in the turn, the skis would do the work.
Yeah, she's rotating really early. She lifts that ski to make it easier to rotate.
Yeah.
And also to get her switched over, get pressure switched over to the other ski. And that by lifting up that now inside ski right there, that's it's moving her center of mass to the inside of the turn. I mean, all the stuff she's doing is, like you said, is stuff that works. It's just not very efficient. So,
No, but she's displacing to an edge.
mm-hmm.
I mean, she's moving the skis away instead of really moving her center of mass to the inside. But I'd like to ask her a lot of questions. Try to get to the root cause of what she thinks she's doing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's do an MA on a better skier. Let's see. Skier 1 purple coat at 23 seconds. Okay, directing pressure outside ski. Anybody want to jump in and talk about what they're seeing?
Isn't this the one that we saw like a couple months ago that somebody was making the short turn and I said, this, the way the power is used is that the pong or air hockey that you just edge, bounce, edge, bounce, edge, bounce technique, which again, when the condition is right, it's really fun to ski this way. But say like the place like Rebecca and Jerry Ann skis, or more say like Maren skis in Liberty, when all this man-made snow freeze up becomes ice half of the time, she could be just, the ski could be taken to the side. So
I-
it'd be nice to have more like not popping up, but finish the turn so she can ski on short turns on more challenging snow condition.
For me, if I start from the bottom up and I look at her ski snow interaction for a moment, she doesn't engage her edges until late in the turn, almost at the end of the shaping or late shaping, early finish. If you look at the duration, at the rate at which she turns, the first 2/3 of the turn is fairly fast. And the last third, that finish phase, is the longest portion of her turn, is the longest in duration.
The
I'm
finish
seeing a
pass,
number.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing a number of things that are likely causing this. So if we look at fore-aft balance, it's decent, but there's room for improvement here. I think she can move her center of mass slightly forward by closing those ankles just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That will help her engage the ski a little bit earlier in the turn. Same with a little bit of ankle flexion, knee flexion, and hip flexion, I think will go a long way in helping her here. That gives her more of a platform upon which she can balance. If you notice where her hip is now, relative, I mean, if you can draw reference angles here, you can see her hip is, if I were to draw a reference angle, it's pointed down into the snow. So she's way on the inside of the turn.
Right.
Right? Her center of mass is on the inside. So again, she needs to have some degree of counter rotation here, which I'm not seeing a whole lot of. There's a tiny bit, but it's not, there can be more here.
Mm-hmm.
Again, to allow her to pressure that outside ski and have a platform upon which she can balance.
So somewhat more angulation, because she's a little bit too inclined and not enough angulated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think those are all great observations. You know, just watching her, I'm seeing a pretty pronounced up and down motion. So she's, I think, the way she's managing the pressure, she's getting a big up unweighted. She's rotating the skis. They're staying on the snow, but there's no pressure. And then late in the turn, she comes back down and jams on the edges. AJ, to your point.
Yeah, I'm with Noriko. She's turning for turning's sake.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Yeah,
not
she's-
doing anything functional. So kind of back to your point about yes, I think she's not much. She's just more accomplished skier than the skier above, but she's doing a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
Is
She's
she
not-
also rotating before she is
She's-
switching edges?
Exactly. And when she
Mhm.
moves, she does not move her center of mass forward. She moves it up and back.
You know,
If you-
when the snow condition and slope angles, and everything is right, I ski like this and it's fun. You just bouncing left to right to left to right, and it's really fun to ski like this. I can feel her.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And they'll tell you, and every examiner will tell you, you're not directing your skis, you're just moving from side to side.
Mhm.
yeah,
So one of the things I like in this picture right here, her outside ski is hardly on the snow. Her inside ski is kicking up a little bit of snow. Her outside leg is way extended. She's got the straight leg thing going almost to a fault, but it's still not getting pressure to the ski. So yeah, it's the angulation and the counter that's preventing her from doing that.
That's kind of that hip thing, the hip and the
Mhm.
shoulders and
Yeah.
that's, in order to direct skis to the outside and pressure to the outside, you have to have that hip aligned.
Yeah.
And her hips are not aligned to the outside ski. And it's the way that she's doing it, how she's rotating into the turn. So there's an extension. She's not moving forward, she's moving laterally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's kind of an up and back, and then she just settles in. But she gets the hip right there at the kind of at the end, but it's too late.
yeah. Yeah, there's just no pressure early in the turn. It's all rotation.
It's all rotations, rotating to an edge
And she's
until
just
she
getting
finally
pressure
gets
now.
purchased, which is like you said, JJ,
Mhm.
it's like almost in the finish.
Yeah,
She gets all the way to the finish. She's like, her skis are pointing at 4 o'clock before she finally gets purchased.
mm-hmm.
You notice the A-framing too?
Yeah, a little bit of lateral displacement of the outside leg.
She's got this weird knee stuff going on.
Well,
No,
she's not
it's-
lined
it-
even there.
because she's pushing the feet out.
Yep.
You push
Right
it
there.
out, push it out.
She's rotating her legs there.
Mhm.
Oh, no, I know. I'm not arguing with that part. Actually, she's doing a pretty good job of rotating her legs. But
She
that's all
did,
she's doing.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good illustration of why you need a blend of the fundamentals, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Her turning is almost entirely rotation.
it's neat to see that she's doing what Gelly was showing. If you look on her turns to the left, to skier's left, she's doing that Gelly thing that was in the lower right corner,
Right, the hip dump.
right there.
Mm-hmm.
Her tuchus is over her old outside ski, and her knee, her inside knee just shoots out, points the opposite, right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and look at the angle of her hips.
And you
Compared
see
to her
that
shoulders.
both legs are practically equally bent so that there's no long leg, short leg. When you were a little bit advanced, you just like
Yeah.
2 frames ahead.
So I don't mind seeing this early in the turn where you're trying to build a platform. As long as there was some angulation and direction, but it's all rotation. So
Right.
so right now her hips are like here and they're aligned with her shoulders and her body's fairly like this. Knees are like this too, and everything's aligned. But as soon as she gets to the next portion, go ahead and keep it going right to about the time that she's right there. Her hips never change. Her shoulders are more like this. There's now a separation in the middle part of the body. Knees are aligned like this. So she loses her angles.
Mm-hmm.
If her
Yeah.
hip was here, then her leg, this leg would be long, and this leg would be right here. And she could get more pressure on this foot. But right now,
So
her hips are aligned to the skis, and she's still riding on the inside ski.
Yeah, she's not directing pressure to the outside ski here.
No, her hips are they're not level with the hill.
Yeah, for everybody that was on the call last week, AJ, you brought up the Brazilian butt lift, and I added a slide breaking that down a little bit with some highlights that you guys
That's
have.
Rebecca's.
Might be fun to go back to. Oh,
It's
Rebecca,
actually Murmur Blakesley that brought that up. I don't want to claim credit for that. Wish I was that creative.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, good stuff. We're at an hour and a half now. I think we've had some great discussion. Be a good time to think about wrapping it up. Kind of recapping, maybe how did somebody change their understanding of the fundamental today, or how did their understanding change?
Well, I have a better idea of physics.
That's important.
Well, so at this point, we've done 2 fundamentals, and, without the four-aft balance, whatever we do is not going to work. And then now, once you get the four-aft balance, we want foot to foot for the, so four-aft balance will get us go straight down the hill, right? Without falling. And then to make the turn, we need to really being able to do this foot to foot movement before we do anything else.
Right.
So those 2, so we get step 1, step 2, and then from there, the last 3 that we be doing is more like combination. It's like salad dressing.
Mhm.
You can pick and choose what you want to have for the day, or the snow condition or terrain, or you get to decide which technique to use when. But those first 2 that we did are like, we can't do it without it.
Well, I think what I got out of this is also that foot to foot directing, switching from foot to foot also involves edging.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. That's where, like, you cannot have just foot to foot really without creating edges if you're on a slope.
Yeah. As soon as you direct pressure to that outside ski, it moves your center of mass to the inside and starts developing an edge angle.
Yeah,
Right.
edging and foot to foot are very, very closely related.
Mhm.
Like love and marriage, huh?
There they are. But remember, without rotation, it's very hard to align over the outside ski. So there's where that one comes in. And if you are moving forward down the hill, which is what that last girl was not illustrating.
Yeah.
If you're moving forward down the hill, there's your early ski engagement, which is where she's not getting any of that happening because she's moving up and away. So there's your fore aft. All of these are I don't think any of them are any more important or less important than the others,
Mhm.
but you gotta have them all.
Right.
All right. Well, we must be done
Gordon.
because Jerry Ann is yawning.
Gordon. Another phenomenal job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was awesome.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop recording now.